Hello, welcome back to my channel where today I'll be making an Aipom cosplay. So I have quite a lot of Pokemon cosplays because I really like designing cosplays for characters that don't wear clothing. I just find it really interesting to take the character and make it into an outfit that actually looks like them. And a few months ago I decided I wanted to make another one and I picked Aipom because they're one of my favourite Pokemon. I even have one tattooed on my arm. I also thought it'd be really exciting to do a Pokemon with a really obvious tail so that I can make a full-on plushy tail that I've never done before because I really wanted to do this for a very long time. Design-wise, I wanted to do a purple jumpsuit with a yellow stomach, obviously the giant tail, and then I also wanted to add gloves to the design because pretty much all Pokemon trainers wear gloves and I really wanted it to feel like it fit into the world of Pokemon. But that's enough design talk, let's get into the making. As with all my clothing and cosplay, I start out by making pattern pieces. For the main jumpsuit, I did this using the clothes cloning method, i.e. tracing around existing clothing in the configuration that I want to achieve. So for this, I used a t-shirt and a pair of trousers that are not only like the fit of, but also knew that met the correct points of the body to make one outfit. I did think about just tracing a bodysuit and just extending it in places to make it bigger on the shoulders and bigger on the shorts, but every time I try and make a bodysuit it always doesn't fit me. For some reason it's just one of the things I can't do. So I did this method instead, knowing that it's been successful in the past. I also made a very simple tail plush pattern. Each ball of the tail just consists of 6 isohedrons, which just have to have a height that is double the width. And I wrote 8 on these pieces at this point, you only need 6, I was just writing the wrong thing. With all my pattern pieces created, I could finally go on to cutting out all the pieces from the fabric that I've chosen. For this I used a very plush jumper material. I really wanted this cosplay to be comfortable, and with part of it being the plush tail, I knew everything would have to be done in a material that would work for this, as I wanted everything to match, so I felt like this was the best option. There is a slight worry that I'll be really hot if I wore this to a convention. However, I don't have any convention plans currently. And this cosplay is also shorts with the arms fully exposed, so I think it'd be completely fine in that environment, if not quite breathable compared to other cosplays. While cutting out the pieces, I also decided I wanted to add side panels to achieve a more shapeless look, as I really don't want this cosplay to come across gendered at all. I just really want to look like a fluffy purple monkey, that's all I want to look like in this cosplay. And to make these pieces, I just used the edge of my pattern so that they would definitely be the right length, and then I just kind of configured them into the shape I think would work. The next step was to sew the 2 front and 2 back panels together into one piece, so that I'd end up with 2 complete panels rather than 4 separate panels. And for this, I just used a very simple stitch down each seam. I did think about using a zigzag stitch because in my personal sewing, I've had issues with fraying lately, but this fabric is so tough and strong, I think it's okay with just a straight stitch. After that, the next step is surprisingly the zipper. I find zippers very difficult to sew, but it's so important to this cosplay because you can't get in and out of it at all if it doesn't have a zipper on it. So I wanted to do it as early in the process as possible so I could get it out the way with and know it's done correctly. And for this, I decided to use a method that was introduced to me by Sarah Spaceman, who's a cosplayer here on YouTube. I will try and find the exact video and link it down below, because she made it look really easy, and for once it actually was. What you do is you lay the zip face down on a previously created seam, sew all the way around it in full, and then just seam rip away the initial seam to reveal the zipper. It was super easy and looks clean in the final result, which for this was especially important because the zip is not the same colour as the outfit. I just reuse old zips from different projects, and I also have a bag of zips from my grandma. So none of them are the right colour, I just picked the one that's the right length, so they obviously need to be hidden in a final piece. Next up was the stomach panel. I just simply cut this out and sewed it directly onto the front piece. There isn't much to say about this, to be honest. It's one of those things in sewing that's actually becoming a little bit easier for me, which is especially good for cosplays like this because it really makes the character more recognisable. With the front and back panels now completed, it was time to sew everything together and make a wearable piece. Like with the front and the back, I was just simply stitching down these seam lines. And I also did a little bit of extra fitting on my body, which was mainly just the shoulder pieces. I felt like the armpits were hanging really low. And while this did make the neckline very high up, I knew I was going to be hemming these sections anyway, so that would be fixed at some point later on. Now that the base jumpsuit was ready, I could finish everything off by hemming the collar, the shoulders, and the bottom of the shorts. I also cropped the shorts to have a little bit more of a flare. To do this, you just take more length off at the outside compared to the inside. And I did this because I thought it looked cuter and a little bit more whimsical. To finish off all the other seams, I did a double rolled hem with a zigzag stitch. I find this really fiddly and awkward to do for some reason. Realistically, it should be a very simple thing as you just roll it up and sew it, but I find it really difficult to make it look nice and even. I should probably watch a tutorial on how to do it properly because maybe I'm just doing it terribly wrong. With that said, the bodysuit is now finished and I think it looks really cute and exactly how I wanted it to come out. However, I don't think it's at the point where anyone would recognise the character, so it's finally time to make the plush tail that I was so excited about. Starting out with the hand, I made 4 balls, 1 large and 3 small, out of all the isohedrons I cut out way back in the cutting out phase. Going into this, I thought this would be the more difficult part of the cosplay, but it actually turned out really easy and fun fun to do, especially as it was something new to me and it didn't take any trial and error. It actually came out perfectly the first time around. The most fun part was definitely seeing it come alive with all the stuffing. It just looks perfect in a way I thought I would never be able to achieve. Obviously it has areas that are quite rough, and I also didn't stuff it enough in the end, which means it's not as solid as I would like it to be, but it really does look like Aipom's tail in a way I don't think I've been able to achieve with any of my other Pokemon cosplays. I usually make like really flat ears because I just don't know how to make them, whereas this time I feel like it's a really tangible thing that really shows off what the character is. Once the hand was all finished, I then made a long purple tube to attach it to the bodysuit, and then threaded an invisible string between the fingers so that they would all hold together and move in the same sort of way. This was also necessary because, as I said before, I didn't stuff it quite enough, so the fingers don't stay in place as well as they probably should do. So threading them together meant that they all kind of look like they're sticking out a little bit more. I do suspect that these threads will probably need replacing as I wear the cosplay because they are very thin and stretchy, so they're going to break occasionally. But they don't take very long to do, and I don't want it to be really obvious, so I think invisible thread is the only way of doing this. And then finally I added an internal belt to the inside of it to keep the tail more flat against my back. It's a technique that all furries do to keep their tails in place. But I did use the wrong sort of fabric. I should have used a stronger fabric, but this fabric is a little bit stretchy, so it doesn't quite hold in place that well. I should probably get a proper belt at some point for it. With the main cosplay now finished, I can move on to the accessories, which started out with gloves. For these, I wanted to make them in the simplest way possible, so each one is just 2 rectangles, 1 yellow and 1 purple, with a piece of elastic around the wrist to give it better shape. You can make much better gloves with fingers and such, but they are really difficult to make, so I went with this instead. I think they came out quite cute. They're not perfect. I feel like I could definitely sew them again and make them look a little bit more detailed, but for what they are, I think they turned out fine. Next, I made some leg warmers just because I felt the legs were too bare, and I also made these in the simplest way possible, which in this case was 2, I think, isotopal trapezoid. It's been a very long time since I did maths, so I don't really know shape names anymore, but basically I wanted the top to be bigger than the bottom because my ankle is smaller than my thigh. Other than that, they were basically the same process as the gloves but bigger, and then they have elastic at the top and the bottom to give it better shape. With that, all the outfit pieces were finished, so I moved on to the wig. For the wig, I really wanted it to just look like any other monkey style wig, so a really harsh widow's peak, quite fluffy going backwards, and then with big ears on the side. I also wanted to keep it quite messy because I'm not very good at cutting hair, so the messier it is, the better it looks in the final result. To start, I took all the hair off the front of my wig and moved the sides into a slightly different backwards angle to give me some space to add a bumper and to change the shape of the hairline without wasting all the hair underneath it. For the puff, I sewed a very simple one out of some fabric I used for the outfit and stuffed it lightly so it could be stretched over the head without ending up with any distinct lines between it and the wig base. This was then sewn directly to the wig cap so that it wouldn't move at all, and I could also glue the hair directly over the top of it. With the base all done, I could now add the hair back over the top of it, and this was such a long process. I did a new layer whenever I could, usually it was heading out to work, and it really shouldn't have taken as long as it did, but one, I was using completely the wrong type of glue. I was using PVA glue, which dries really slowly, which means I couldn't add loads of layers at one time. I had to wait at least 10 hours between each application before I could add another 2 layers on top. And 2 hours is very busy with work because it's the Christmas season and I work in a theatre, so the time just wasn't really working out for me, but in the end I did finally get it finished. The front of the wig definitely came out a little bit too harsh in my opinion. I should probably look up a better way of making the hairline, like doing it individually with little spikes I think would be better. But overall I think the hair restoration process was much better than last time I did a wig, because my first wig is just falling off the sides. I need to glue it all back on again. This one is definitely more solid and more in place, and it definitely gave me the hairline that I wanted it to. With the hair all back on the wig, I gave it a very choppy haircut. Like I said before, I'm no good at cutting hair, so I always go with a messier option. This one doesn't look great from the back, but from the front I think it looks absolutely fine, so this is what I went with. I really want to get some really cheap wigs and sit down with the tutorial and just cut them up into different hairstyles just to get some practice in. I think that would really help me improve my later cosplays. For the final touch, I made some little ears that could be tacked onto the wig so I could take them off easily if I ever wanted to use this for a different cosplay. And I didn't film much of the process for this because I was watching my boyfriend play video games while doing it, but I did get a few clips of each of the stages of the process. They were just very simple, 2 flat pieces sewn together, stuffed, and then just tacked onto the side. And with that said, the Aipom cosplay is finally finished and I can finally show you the result. in all, I feel like this cosplay came out quite good. It's very simple when I knew it was going to be simple going into it, but I feel like it's quite effective for what it is. I'm actually surprised with how much I like the shape of this bodysuit. Like, the shape of it is something I would probably wear outside, especially the bottom half. Like, the little shorts on it are really cute, so I might be making one of these for myself just to wear in general life. In terms of the tail, like I said before, it really needed more stuffing. You can really see it now that it doesn't hold its shape very well, but the strings definitely help it. Like, when I hold it like this, you can see that this one doesn't flop all the way down because it's holding up by the string, so that was definitely a good idea for it. I might just pick a hole in it and stuff it a little bit more just to get more of that stability that I want. But for a first trial making something plushy, I think it came out much better than I was expecting. I expected this to go terribly wrong and for me to give up on it. So overall, this was a massive success, and I feel like it definitely reads as an Aipom tail. Like, there's no mistaking what this is if you know Pokemon, obviously. If you don't know Pokemon, you might know what it is, but that's the same with all cosplays. Cosplays can be exactly screen accurate, and it doesn't mean everyone's going to know what it is. So I think for a Pokemon fan, this is exactly what they would be expecting for an Aipom cosplay tail. So I would call this a massive success. But yes, with that said, that is the end of this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it and enjoyed the final result of the cosplay. Please let me know what you think of it down below in the comments. Also, while you're down there, give this video a like and subscribe, as I post a new video every single week, and I'd love to see you again. But until then, bye!